In the last week, we released a series of 10 videos on learning AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and DevOps. We did a little bit more research and came up with a list of 20 frequently asked questions from learners about learning cloud and DevOps. Balaji over here is going to be the co-host for this video, and he has started his cloud journey 2 years back. I and Balaji would share our experiences learning cloud and DevOps and also answer the 20 frequently asked questions in this specific video. Welcome, Balaji.
Thank you, Ranga, for having me today.
Glad to have the discussion about getting started into cloud and DevOps, Balaji.
Sure, Ranga. So to begin with today's discussion, I have the first question is, can you answer me what is cloud in general?
Yeah. So if you look at cloud, right? Cloud is nothing new. Until now, enterprises have been using data centers to deploy their applications, right? So let's say I would want to put an application, a Java application or a Python application. What we would do is we would create a server in a data center and we would deploy it there. Cloud is basically a computer which you don't have physical access to, but which is probably in AWS's data center or a Google Cloud's data center. That's what cloud is. Cloud is somebody else's computer. So what we are doing in here is kind of getting access to that computer or getting access to that hardware. You are kind of renting it, right? So the model of, like earlier when we talk about enterprises, right, we used to buy infrastructure. Like you have to buy a server, put it in the data center. Now you don't need to. You can directly go in and let's say right now there are a lot of users on my application. What I can do is I would want more virtual servers. So I go and rent them, use them, and once the number of users go down on my site, I can give the infrastructure back. So simply speaking, cloud is somebody else's computer that you rent and give it back when you don't need it. How do you define, like, how do you look at it, Balaji? What your definition of the cloud?
Yeah, I completely agree with your point, Ranga, because as you have mentioned in very layman terms, like cloud is nothing but it is something which we rent and we use it on our own needs and so on. So that's when the cost efficiency aspect comes in when it comes to when we are opting out for cloud. Yeah, that's what I would like to convey to the audience. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, Ranga. So as you have mentioned, what is cloud? My next question would be, why is cloud so popular right now?
Right. So if you look at enterprises, right, like let's start with startups, right? So go a few years back, right? If a startup want to go global, it's very difficult. Why? Because they need to first set data centers in the location where they are, right? Let's say they become big, and now they are not happy with being just in, let's say, Chennai or Mumbai or Hyderabad. They want to set up a server, let's say, in Sydney or in New York. It was a lot of work to set up data centers and put servers everywhere around the world. Now imagine what you can do with the cloud, right? In cloud I can go now, like with a click of button I can create a new free AWS account or Azure account or a Google Cloud account, and I can go and create servers in different parts of the world. I can rent infrastructure like never possible. I mean, this kind of thing was never possible before at all, right? I mean, the facilities that cloud provides to startups is such so good, right? You have the flexibility to do things which were never possible before. And look at it from the enterprise perspective, right? When enterprise, let's say, let's consider a shopping application. Let's probably like consider one of the popular shopping ones, right? For example, let's say Flipkart, right? Let's say Flipkart, uh, they have huge amount of load during the shopping season, the Diwali season, the New Year's sales, right? But the rest of the time they'll not have the same amount of load. So what they need to do before was they need to provision infrastructure, or actually they need to buy infrastructure and put it in their data center to satisfy the peak load. Let's say their peak load is 1 million users or 100 million users. They need to have infrastructure for 100 million users. But now they just rent infrastructure as they want it. They can ask from the cloud, okay, now I have 1 million users, very less load, so I want to rent less infrastructure. But when there is more load, they can actually get more infrastructure. So that's the power of cloud, right? So it's enables you to be more dynamic, so it keeps your costs low. And other advantage is like as cloud became more and more popular, like as more and more people started using the cloud, the cloud platform providers like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, they started doing a lot of innovation. They started, like earlier it was just infrastructure as a service. Basically, you can rent a server, you can install Java, you can do whatever you want manually and things like that, right? But now cloud is providing a number of value added services, right? It's not just infrastructure as a service anymore. You have now managed services, you things like serverless, things like container orchestration, like all those things are now possible. You can go and create a Kubernetes cluster in the cloud in a few minutes, right? To set up a Kubernetes cluster in data center would take a long while. So there are a lot of, I mean, cost saving is one, and also today I think the advantages that cloud provides in terms of managed services, making DevOps easy, like a lot of value adds that are there for the enterprises. How do you see it, Balaji? What are the other values that you think cloud provides?
Yes, Ranga. So you have mentioned a lot of valid points that cloud provides, and when it comes to startups, in the recent times, I have seen a lot of startups coming up. The reason is because a lot of cloud providers started providing credits for the startup so that without even having a huge funding, they can just have or build a really good application. If they are going to host it in the cloud, they are providing a lot of free credits until their startup gets boomed up or something like that. So
Right.
that's the most important revolution that's happening right now because of cloud providers. A lot of startups are also booming up. So that's one of the most
Absolutely.
advantage that I would see. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, Ranga. So when it comes to learning cloud, so how does someone start their career in cloud? And when it comes to college students, what is the right time for them to start their career with cloud or learning cloud and so on?
Absolutely. I think that's like one of the most important things learners should realize is the fact that cloud is a secondary skill. It's not the primary skill, right? If you are a programmer, programming is your primary skill. If you are a tester, testing is your primary skill. If you're a business analyst is your primary skill, right? So that's the fundamental knowledge. You need to be good at what you do fundamentally. So if you are a programmer, you should be good at programming. You should know at least your programming language very well. If you're building applications, you should know how to build applications with a specific framework very well. So that's the fundamental knowledge. And only after that is the knowledge of the cloud. Right? Once you have some fundamental knowledge, after that you can actually gain knowledge of how to do that in the cloud. Right? If you are developing something, what would you do? You'd go ahead, typically you'd deploy it in your data center, but now you'd put it to the cloud. So you need to understand how to put it to the cloud. What are the different options that cloud provides? But it's only after you are good at what you do. So first focus on whatever you are doing, be good at it, and then you would start your cloud journey. How was it for you, Balaji? How did you start your cloud journey?
Yes, Ranga. So, as you have mentioned, you should know the how to develop, and you should know that's when you need to move to deployment stage. When I started my career with cloud, it was complete opposite. So I was
Okay.
initially started my career straightly as a cloud engineer. Initially, it was
Okay.
really good because I didn't find much difficulties when it comes to working with cloud. But over the point when you become an experienced cloud engineer, that's when the problem comes. Without if you are someone who is into cloud without the development knowledge, you might face issues in the production because you can't rely on developers all the time. So that's when I thought, okay, we should learn development at first, and then we should understand, okay, this is how the code part works, this is how the software development workflow works, and so on. So that's when, if you are working as a cloud engineer, the cloud part becomes much more easier because you will be much more improved in terms of troubleshooting skills. So this is how I learned in my entire 2.5 years of cloud journey. Yes, Ranga.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very, very essential that somebody is good at what they are primarily doing. And then cloud is a great add on knowledge. And
Yeah.
the way I look at cloud is it's a big differentiator, right? So earlier, like if I look at the industry, there were not a lot of opportunities which were there for me to differentiate myself from a lot of others. Today, uh, if I'm a good programmer, if I am good at system design, and if I'm good at data structures and algorithms, I can add cloud as an add-on skill or DevOps as an add-on skill, and it kind of gives me a huge value to my profile as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's perfect. Like for me, like cloud is secondary skill, but it's a very very important add-on skill.
Yes, like, absolutely. So when it comes to different cloud platforms out there, we have a lot of cloud platforms out there. Probably, can you please tell me the differences between the most popular out there, which are AWS, GCP, and Azure?
Right. So if you look at where the cloud started, right? So the like really speaking, actually, the Google Cloud actually brought in the first cloud service, but it did not really get popular. The first popular one was AWS. So AWS was the one which really got popular, and they brought in this concept of cloud. They started offering some of the managed services. S3 was one of the first services that AWS introduced, and after that they started introducing a lot of other services. Right, today AWS offers more than probably 300 400 services. Probably we don't even have a count of how many services they offer. So AWS was the first cloud, became really popular. uh, a lot of enterprises actually started making use of AWS, and at that particular point in time was when Google Cloud and Azure, both of them, started coming into picture. Like I would say Azure started even earlier than Google. I mean, Azure was the one which focused on the cloud since the time Satya Nadella took over. I think Azure also started focusing a lot on the cloud platform, making it like really enterprise friendly and things like that. And slowly, Azure moved into the second place. So if I see today, probably Azure and AWS are competing for the first place. Google Cloud is somewhere probably little low down on the third place, but Google Cloud also is doing well. From the time Thomas Kurian picked up as like Thomas Kurian became the CEO, I see a lot of focus on Google Cloud and a lot of innovation going on in there. Also, like Google Cloud, technologically, I mean, technically, there is no question that Google Cloud will be really good, because that's where most of the products that we are using, even this video would be going live on YouTube actually runs on some kind of Google Cloud. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the technology there is proven. It's just that they did not have the enterprise focus, the business focus. And from the time Thomas Kurian took over, like the enterprise and business focus came in, and I would say they are doing pretty well there as well. So like in the last few years, actually Google Cloud is the fastest growing cloud. So AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, any of them, I think from an enterprise perspective, probably 1 2 3 matters. But from a learner
Yeah.
perspective, I think you can pick up any of them. And if you are an expert at them, like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, if you are really good at them, there are lots of opportunities out there.
Yes, Ranka, absolutely. Because you mentioned a lot of main common differences between all three cloud platforms. When it comes to the job search, so really the cloud engineer or cloud related designations are only for experienced professionals, or the freshers are also getting opportunities for cloud jobs.
Yeah, I think, see, cloud is relatively new, right? There are not a lot of people available for enterprises with the right skills. So if you look at the boom of the cloud certification, right? If you go 3 years back, hardly anyone used to do cloud certifications. Like maybe a few people used to do cloud certifications, but today, if I log into LinkedIn, the first thing I would say is hundreds of people saying, "I got certified, I got certified, I got certified." Actually, that shows the fact that there is lack of skills. The reason why people are getting certified is because they want to use certification as a way to tell enterprises or businesses that okay, they have skills in the cloud, and that becomes a valid way to represent the skills to the enterprises. Usually certifications don't carry so much value, right? When I do a certification, for example Java certification or a Python certification, do people really care about it? No. But with the cloud, because the skills are so less, they are not available as at all, and a lot of people don't have the experience of actually using the cloud for a long time. We don't have so many people, and cloud is still new, right? Relatively new, so we don't have people who have cloud experience. So that's the reason why, like, the people do certification, probably like get a little bit of hands-on skills, and they are getting a job these days. However, I mean, this is not something which would go on for a long time, right? If you give a 5 year time frame, I would think okay, cloud becomes normal, and then probably we would focus on hands-on skills with the cloud. But today, I think if somebody knows the cloud, somebody has a couple of certifications, they have really good knowledge with the cloud, there are tons of opportunities out there.
Very valid point which you mentioned is the importance of hands-on. When it comes to certifications, Ranga, so as you mentioned, the certifications are a lot more popular right now. Can you tell us the different cloud certifications that are available right now?
Absolutely right. So we are talking about like a lot of certifications, right? AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, each of them have their own certifications, right? So yeah, I think certifications have a big role to play in the cloud, especially because each of the cloud platforms offer a number of services, right? If you look at AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, each of them would offer at least 300 plus services. And for somebody to master all these services is impossible. So, like, even if, like, say, for example, Balaji, you have been working with AWS for for almost a couple of years now, right? So, probably even after that, you might not know a lot of services in depth. You might know, probably you would have used 10 services in depth in your day-to-day life, right? Is that how how it was for you?
Yeah, definitely, Ranga, because as you have mentioned, each year cloud platforms are growing very exponentially. The service which I am knowing today, tomorrow there will be much more new services coming up. So if you need to be much more updated in terms of working with the cloud platform, whatever you are learning and working on. So yeah, probably yeah,
Exactly,
that's the
exactly.
only issue that many people face. Yeah.
Exactly. So it becomes like this is constantly changing. I mean, even though I'm working in the cloud for a couple of years, probably I don't know all the services which are available there, and that's where certifications become really important. Certifications help you to get a wider perspective. That you are not just restricted to the services you are making use of. You just get a wider perspective of everything which is out there. So it really helps. Now, if you don't have any experience with the cloud, right, then I think the best places to start is with some of the beginner certifications, right? For example, Azure has AZ 900, it has DP 900, it has AI 900. These are three really nice certifications to get started with if you don't have any knowledge about the cloud. The other options provided are Google Cloud has its Google Cloud Digital Leader certification, and AWS has its Cloud Practitioner certification. So I would say if you are new to the cloud, either go for AZ 900 or Cloud Digital Leader Google Clouds, or go for cloud practitioner. Those would be the starting points. However, if you have a lot of development experience, you have been using cloud for a little while, then I would recommend you to go for a role specific certification. It's good. Like if you are probably doing a developer role or an architect role, if or you are doing machine learning, or you are a data engineer, or you are a security engineer. Each of the cloud platforms have specific role specific certifications related to that. So if you have no experience, start with a beginner certification. If you have some experience, I would recommend you to actually go in and try a role specific certification available in that specific cloud.
That's pretty much useful, Ranga. So as you have mentioned, a lot of certifications available. Can you tell me how much time will it take to prepare for a particular certification?
Right, absolutely. So for most of these beginner certifications, I would say 3 to 4 weeks should be more than sufficient. If I'm talking about cloud practitioner, AZ 900, or even like cloud digital leader, I think 3 to 4 weeks should be more than sufficient if you are exposed to little bit of technology. If you are completely new to technology, if you have no idea what technology is about, you don't know how a computer works, in those kind of situations, it would definitely take longer, right? So probably then you would be looking at 6 to 8 months of time frame. So yeah, it depends on how experienced you are with computers. If somebody is familiar with developing applications or has familiarity with how computer works and all that stuff, probably they should be able to clear this certification within 3 to 6 weeks. I think that would be the right time frame to look at for the beginner certifications. However, I mean, if I go to the advanced level certifications, they take a lot of time, right? For example, if you're going for any of the developer or the architect certification, these certifications take a lot of time. Like some of these certifications can take 3 months, 3 to 6 months to prepare. So, and also it depends on the experience you have. If you have a lot of experience with that specific cloud, probably you'll be able to achieve that certification faster. But if you don't have a lot of experience, then probably it will take longer to achieve the certification. So it's difficult to come up with a specific number saying this is the amount of time it takes, but it's very important to like come up with intermediate steps. For me, like if you are a developer who are starting with the cloud, probably a beginner certification is a good step before you go into an advanced certification. However, if you have some experience with the cloud, probably you can jump into advanced level certification.
Yes, Ranga. So as you have mentioned, the different time frame for preparing for a certification. So take an example, I have completed a certification. So will certification alone sufficient to get a job in the cloud domain or DevOps domain?
No, I would think certification is a great starting point, right? As far as cloud is
Mhm.
concerned, certifications are a great starting point, but it's very important to build your profile, right? It's very important to showcase how you did things on the cloud, to have a few projects, probably deploy them to the cloud, have something to showcase. Having a certification is really good, but also having something showing some practical skills on the cloud. So maybe have a few example projects where you demonstrated your ability to deploy certain kinds of applications to the cloud or develop certain applications for the cloud. So some kind of practical knowledge on the cloud and ability to demonstrate it is also very, very important. So probably like having a GitHub profile, like where you have a few projects which are demonstrated where you deploy them to the cloud. Having real-time skills, having practical skills with the cloud also are very, very necessary. So those two things, a combination of certifications with a good profile where you have hands-on projects which are deployed to the cloud, I think that would be really, really good to have.
That's fine, Ranga. So when it comes to cloud, there are a lot of doubts when it comes to getting started with cloud, where people have doubt that do I need development or coding experience in order to work in cloud?
Absolutely. Right. So when a lot of people have this experience, right? So finally, if you look at it, right, enterprises applications are deployed to the cloud. And not everybody in the enterprise is a developer. So in the enterprise, there are people playing different roles: business analysts, project managers, testing team, operations team. It's not just the developers, and everybody in the enterprise are going to make use of the cloud, right? It's no longer something where okay, only the development team is going to know about the cloud. That's no longer the case, right? So it's more like earlier, maybe uh, like very less people. I mean, very few people know how a data center works. Probably only the developers and the operations team would be concerned about it. But now with the cloud, I think it has become a cross-cutting concern. Almost everybody in the project needs to be aware of what happens in the cloud, because cloud has become the central point. It's not just the place where you deploy, but also it provides a number of services to make the entire process streamlined, right? So your Jira board might be in the cloud, your DevOps pipelines might be in the cloud. So it's not just your operations dashboard might be in the cloud. It's not just the application which is deployed to the cloud, but the entire radar, right? From start to end of a project, everything is happening in the cloud today. So everybody has to understand the cloud. It's not just the developers. Uh, so to learn the cloud, again, right? So now that everybody has to learn the cloud, learning the cloud cannot be technical anymore. And that's where there are different journeys that you can chalk out for different people. So if you are non-technical, if you are going to do testing, if you're going to do business analysis, you have separate path. You start with the beginner certification, maybe understand what the cloud is, have a high level overview of the value that it provides. And if you are a business leader, probably the journey you need to take would be little different. You start thinking about, okay, what value does cloud bring to my enterprise? And how can I do transformation? So how can I, like, let's say I have applications running on my data center. How do I transform it and put them to the cloud? So getting a high level overview of that would be important. So depending on your role, the kind of knowledge you need to have on the cloud would be different, but learning the cloud is almost essential for everybody.
Yes, Ranga. So that makes a lot of sense when it comes to the certification part. So my next question would be on can you tell us where to look out for the real-time scenarios for cloud?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge, right? So once you do a certification, finding out the real like real life experiences on the cloud can be little difficult, right? One place I would recommend people to go to is architecture centers, right? So each of the cloud has an architecture center which you can go to: AWS architecture center or Google Cloud architecture center or Azure architecture center. There's a lot of documentation in there as to how a specific cloud is, like how you can do specific kind of workloads on the cloud. So if you are want to learn a, if you want to run a machine learning workload, or if you want to run a data engineering workload, or if you want to run a simple compute kind of a thing, or if you want to create a Kubernetes cluster on the cloud. So there are a lot of architectures which are present. And also, like each of the cloud platforms also offers a lot of places where you can actually go and explore a few real-time projects. So for example, quick labs is one place I would recommend people to go to if they want to experiment and learn a specific service. So if you know that I would want to experiment on a specific service, for example, if I want to learn about Google Compute Engine, or if I want to learn about App Engine, or if I would want to learn a lot about BigQuery, then if you go to quick labs, you'll be able to find a few labs which you can go step by step and get practical skills. Similar things are present with other clouds as well. AWS offers labs, like there are labs with Azure as well. So like doing these labs is also another great starting point. So how to use a specific service, you can learn by following through those labs and learning around it. So to get a big picture, high level picture, probably the architecture centers, and to get a hands-on kind of an experience, probably the labs would be the best place to start.
Yes, Ranga. So when it comes to learning cloud, where to start learning cloud? For an example, which platforms to choose or to get started with learning cloud?
Yeah, I think that's a very difficult question to answer, because today I think one of the challenges that we have is the existence of too much information, right? So I mean, I
Okay.
have books, I have videos, I have courses, and even there are courses on huge amount of platforms, like Udemy or Coursera or Pluralsight, LinkedIn Learning, huge number of platforms offering a lot of quality content. I'm not just, I mean, it's not that like almost all of the platforms have really good content if you know how to find it. And added to that is the documentation which is provided by each of the cloud providers, right? Azure, Google Cloud, and AWS are also providing a lot of documentation on their cloud, and also like they're also venturing into making it easy for you to get certified, right? AZ900, uh, Azure provides complete documentation on how to do AZ900. So if you go to Azure Learn, you can
Yeah.
just follow, read the documentation, and do the Azure certification.
Yeah.
AWS is also doing the same thing with the cloud practitioner. If you just do a Google search for AWS cloud practitioner and learn, like you might actually land upon a AWS course to help you clear the cloud practitioner certification. So there is wealth of information out there. What I would recommend you to do is to try and figure out what works for you, right? What I would try to recommend you to do is to spend half an hour with each one of them and see what works for you, right? What works for me might not be working for Balaji. What works for Balaji might not work for somebody else. So try and figure out an individual approach which works for you. For me, for example, if I'm learning AWS, the first thing I would want to understand is a high level architecture of how things work, how AWS works, why AWS, how is it different from like how we were doing things earlier. So I prefer actually reading a lot before I venture into it. So I actually am a big fan of probably pick up a couple of books, read them for a couple of hours, few hours, at least glance at it, get a high level picture, then jump into the hands on. So I kind of try a lot of different things before figuring out what works for me when I learn. And yeah, and I watch a, like, if you know how to find the content on YouTube, YouTube is a great place to learn as well, right? The problem with YouTube is finding, like, a lot of times you do a search result, the first result which comes might not be the best result. Probably a lot of times it's trash. But if you know how to search and how to find good information on YouTube, YouTube can also be a great place to start. I know a lot of friends of mine, like for example, Azure, Sushant is also creating a lot of wonderful Azure content. Like there are a lot of other people who are creating free courses on YouTube itself and putting them on YouTube. Like you can go to platform like Udemy, right? So on Udemy, you can buy a course for 600, 700 rupees, or I mean, very less amount, and you can completely learn all that you need to do, all that you need to learn to complete a certification. Like huge number of platforms out there, wide range of uh, options. Important thing is to experiment and find out what works for you. Balaji,
Yes, Ranga.
how would you? I mean, you have done this journey recently, right? So how what would you recommend?
Yes, Ranga. So the most important thing which you have mentioned is what works for me might not work for others. So that's what the exploring part comes in. So probably whoever wants to start learning cloud or any technology, that's how I learned. So I explored a lot. I tried multiple resources as you have mentioned. I tried Udemy. I will try YouTube one day. I will try Coursera one day. I will try Pluralsight one day. So probably over the period of time, we will we will we will I would say we will realize which works for us, or probably which author or which instructor's explanations works for us. That's when
Exactly,
we would find the best instructors for ourselves. Probably
exactly,
that instructor might not be much more famous, but his or her explanations might be working for yourself. So
absolutely,
exploration is the key part when it comes to learning or getting started with any technology. We should very good at exploring things, and we should also good at ignoring the things which are not, um, I would say, which are not suitable for us. So that's when you will also master the art of exploring things and learning things from online platforms. Yeah.
absolutely. I was actually creating a video with Kaushik and Shiva today morning on how to
Mhm.
learn effectively, and this was one
Yeah.
point which we discussed extensively, right? So you
Yeah.
would want to like identifying what to learn, how to learn is
Yeah.
the challenge, is the biggest challenge.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
what to learn, like trying, because there are so many things to learn out there, right? So
Yeah.
identifying what to learn, focusing on it, figuring out how to learn that, is the biggest challenge in today's world, because there are so many
Yeah.
options to learn. And yeah, I think it will only become a bigger challenge as time goes on. The challenge is only going to become bigger.
Yes. Yes, because the evolution of internet, the amount of data that which we have right now, probably the most important challenge is finding the right things that is suitable for us. Yes, Ranga. So I
Exactly,
completely
exactly.
agree to your point. Yeah. So can you please explain me the importance of implementation experience when it comes to cloud?
Absolutely. I think uh, find like today, I think one of the uh, simplest things that you can do is like start with a lab and create maybe a free tier account with AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, and you can get started with playing the cloud, right? Think about a few years back, right? I don't think that kind of hands-on experience was available. If I wanted to
Yeah.
try something, like there was huge investments I needed to make to get a hands-on experience. But I think that's something which changed drastically in
Yeah.
the last decade or so. Access to technology has become very, very easy. If I want to do hands-on for most of the things, right? Not everything, but for most of the things, hands-on has become much easier. And I think if you learn something in a hands-on way, you will remember it for a long time. Just like my famous quote is like, you read something, you will remember it for maybe 2 3 days, but if you do something, then you will remember it for much longer, right? So the same thing comes with hands-on. If you do hands-on, if you play with it, if you actually get a real-time experience with something, it will not only help you become good at it, but also you'll remember whatever you have learned for a longer time. So having hands-on experience is very, very important, right? So even like a lot of people, actually non-technology people, will think getting hands-on on the cloud is difficult, but actually not. Like cloud is nothing but the cloud, like each of the cloud providers, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, each of them want you to be good at the cloud. So they make it really, really simple to use the cloud. So don't start with the mindset that cloud is difficult, getting hands-on on the cloud is difficult. No, it's neither expensive nor difficult, right? It's just the mindset. If you change your mindset to think that doing hands-on is easy, it's easy. It's not like learning programming, right? So a lot of people compare learning cloud with learning programming or learning building a web application or a full stack application. Those are difficult. Learning programming is difficult. Learning full stack application is difficult. Learning cloud is not so difficult. Comparatively, I would say learning cloud is much more easier than learning AWS, learning Azure, learning Google Cloud. It's much more easier than learning programming or learning uh, full stack development. Things like that are much harder. So getting hands on with the cloud, I don't think is difficult, and everybody should get hands on, irrespective of the kind of role they are performing. I think it's easy to get hands on the cloud, and when you go hands on, you learn a lot more than when you just probably watch a few videos.
Yes, Ranga, absolutely. As you have mentioned, getting hands-on is one of the best way to learn and remember things when it comes to cloud. So, so probably my next question would be, so I am a person who has a career gap. So is it possible to switch towards the cloud domain?
Yeah, I think career gap today, you see a lot of women who have career gaps coming back into the technology field because there is huge demand, right? I mean, uh, like today, like in India, probably like earlier we were talking about 40%, 50% salary hikes being really, really good, but today we are even talking about 100, 200% salary rises, right? So all
Yeah.
that is because there is huge demand for I mean, all like for professionals in general, IT professionals in general. And if you have I mean, if you have skills on the cloud, then it's a completely different ball game altogether. So
Yeah.
if you have skills on the cloud, I mean, if you're good at, like, let's say you are good at developing applications, you took a break, uh, and you can actually learn how to deploy applications to the cloud, get familiar with the cloud, probably do a couple of certifications on the cloud. I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities out there. So irrespective of whether you have a career gap or not, I think there are opportunities out there, uh, especially right now. I'm not sure how it would be a few years down the line, but today, with the scarcity of the skills, I think even if you have a career gap, if you're good at the cloud, if you're good at some of the important DevOps tools, there are a huge number of opportunities available out there.
Yes, Ranga. So when it comes to my next question, so can you tell the differences between the cloud and DevOps? And also, do I need to learn DevOps as part of cloud designations too?
Yeah. So let's probably take a step back, right? So cloud and DevOps. Let's start with that. Uh, I mean, uh, lot of people think DevOps is something new. I mean, it's something we started only doing in the last few years. For me, actually, DevOps is nothing but a cycle of improvement in how we build software, right? So from the start, when we started building software, there are three very, very important things I focus on when judging how we are building software. One is communication, right? If you have good communication in the team, uh, you will build good software. So if development team talks to business team, if the testing team talks to business team, that's when you know exactly what is required and you'll be building good software. uh, so with DevOps, what we did is, with Agile, we brought the development and the development and the business teams together. With DevOps, or whatever we call DevOps today, we bring the operations also together. It's like earlier it was like, okay, this is the code, run it in production. Now it's not no longer like that, right? So the operations team is also into the mix, so you enhance communication in the team. The other thing which is very, very important when it comes to software is automation. There are so many steps in the entire life cycle of a software product or software project, right? You start with business analysis, do a lot of things before the software is finally in production. And once it's in production, there are again a lot of steps. You want to monitor it, you want to make sure that everything is up and running. If there is a problem, you want to debug that. So this entire cycle has a lot of steps involved, and you want to automate as many steps as possible. So earlier the focus was on trying to automate little bit, right? Continuous integration. We said, okay, let's deploy software to an environment fast. Now with DevOps, we say infrastructure as code. Let's create infrastructure automatically. Let's not manually create infrastructure. I would want to automatically create it from a script, right? Earlier we used to, like, if there's a problem, getting the logs, debugging it becomes really easy, difficult. Now we want to simplify that. We say, okay, we need to have monitoring tools. We would want centralized logging. We would want centralized tracing. So this is just a journey, right? So when we started software development, we were focusing on different elements. As the journey goes in, we started focusing on different elements. So DevOps is nothing but this journey. And few years back, some of the DevOps tools were difficult to use because a lot of them needs complicated deployments. Like if I want to run Jenkins, I would want to set up a server, then install Java, install Jenkins, a lot of things. But today, if you're using the cloud, DevOps is nothing but configuring a few screens, right? If you want to set up a continuous integration cycle, you just go to there, like put the right, you just click through the screens, do it. If you want to set up continuous deployment, you can do that. Cloud also makes infrastructure as code very, very easy, right? If you write a Terraform script, you can easily provision any resource that you would want on the cloud. So if, like, for me, like, cloud makes DevOps very, very easy. So even if you want to learn DevOps, I think the first point you can start is cloud. So learn cloud and then learn DevOps on the cloud. So learn how to do continuous integration, continuous deployment, infrastructure as code, how to monitor applications, how to build applications that would send the data to the monitoring tool. So all that stuff are much, much easier to do on the cloud. So I would recommend people who are starting their journeys today, if you don't know what is Docker, what is Kubernetes, you don't know what is what is Terraform, don't worry about it. Start with the cloud and then slowly build the knowledge on Kubernetes, slowly build knowledge on Terraform. The most important thing I would recommend all learners to do is to focus on one thing at a time. A lot of times there are so many things to learn that it's impossible to be a master at all of them, and it's impossible to learn all of them together. It's very important to know what you're focusing on. So start with small steps. Focus on, like, maybe the first baby step would be get a cloud certification, deploy a few applications on the cloud. The next step might be, okay, I'll want to play a little bit with Docker. I'll want to play a little bit with Kubernetes and understand what can be done. So it should be focused. Like, you should know exactly what you are doing at a particular point in time. It should be a focused journey. If you are trying to do a lot of things at the same time, you will end up not learning anything, and probably you will not even remember them for the long time. So if you are able to focus on a specific thing at a specific time and learn it very well, you'll be able to not only learn it very well, but also remember it for a long time. So yeah, to summarize, I think start with cloud and then go to any of the DevOps tools.
Absolutely, Rinka. So you have provided a lot of clarity in terms of differences between cloud and DevOps. And my favorite one of the thing which you have mentioned is learn one thing at a time and focus on one step at a time. So that's most important
Exactly.
thing that whoever start learning cloud and DevOps one should do that. And my next question would be, can you tell us the job opportunities that are part of the cloud and DevOps?
Yeah, there are a wide variety of roles, right? So as we said, cloud journey starts in an enterprise from the start to the end. Like cloud is involved in every step of the way, right? So starting from how you track your business requirements, how you build software. You want to build cloud native applications. You'd want to build applications which can be deployed onto the cloud. And you have people who would actually configure the continuous integration, continuous deployment cycles, people who would write infrastructure as code scripts, people who would monitor the application in production. So all these roles are open. So it's very, very difficult to like one of the biggest challenges today is each enterprise has its own way of dividing this work, right? We talked about the entire cycle of work, and in this entire cycle of steps, probably one company would say, okay, the developers are responsible for the entire cycle from start to the end. And they would say, I need a DevOps engineer who has development experience, operations experience, everything. Certain enterprises would say, probably like my developer engineer, my developers need to know the cloud a little bit, uh, but they don't need to worry about the operations related tools. They need to understand the tool, have a high level knowledge, but it's not necessary to like know everything about the operations tool. The same with the operations team roles as well, right? The operations role probably needs to understand, okay, what is software development, like understand a little bit of the development cycle. Probably they need to be an expert on the monitoring tools on Prometheus, or somebody, there's an expectation for somebody to be really, really good at infrastructure as code. So there are wide range of roles that are possible. I think the essence there is like we are going towards more of a T-shaped skills kind of evolution, right? Earlier, like you were a developer, you were really a good programmer, that was sufficient. It's no longer needed to worry about the rest of the things. But today, it's not sufficient if you're just good at what you do. You need to have little bit of skills in the rest of the areas. That's why we call the T-shaped, right? So you have depth of knowledge in one area, and you have a whole breadth of knowledge in a lot of areas. So you have knowledge, probably if you are a developer, you would be good at containers, container orchestration, building software, and you would have high level overview of what are the different tools that are made with respect to operations and things like that, right? So that's kind of the T-shaped skills that we talk about almost in every area that we talk about today, right? In any area related to software development, I think T-shaped skills is becoming popular. So not like, don't restrict yourself to just being an expert on one area. Have high level overview. You don't need to have in-depth knowledge, but having high level overview is important. This evolution started with full stack development. Earlier, when we built applications, we only had like the entire JSP servlet kind of, like the entire application was one, but slowly we kind of had a full stack React Angular, and then we had APIs built in a backend Node or like Node or Spring Boot or even Python. So like at that particular point in time, we started going towards the T-shaped skills, right? So you are really good at backend, and probably you have a little bit of knowledge on the front end, so you can get things working on the front end. And that evolution now took a complete different route with cloud and DevOps, right? So now you are expected not only to be good at programming, but also a lot of breadth is important. So depth and breadth both become important as we go further. And to really go back to the first question you asked, different roles, there is no one standard definition. I would say there are so many definitions for the roles that if somebody is actually looking at like targeting a specific role, it's the thing I would recommend them to do is to actually go and read the job description for the role that you are trying to apply and see what they are asking for and start from there, because each enterprise has different needs, different job roles, different job role requirements. Yeah, so if you want to decide specifically what to learn, I think it's better to identify 5 or 6 job profiles you would want to target, identify the abstract of it, and start focusing towards learning those things.
That's amazing explanations, Ranga. So that's all I had for today, Ranga. So it was amazing conversation with you. So do you have something or any other important points to add to this particular conversation?
I think for me, like the important takeaways for somebody who's watching this video is one, cloud is a very, very important skill, but cloud is a secondary skill. It's not the primary skill. You should be good at what you do. You should be good at programming or testing or business analysis. Whatever is your primary skill, you should be good at it. And this cloud is just the secondary skill. The second thing is technology is changing so fast that there are so many things that you might want to learn. So don't try to learn everything which is out there. Try and spend some time analyzing what you want to learn and why you want to learn it. So look at job profiles. A lot of people I see just jump into cloud without knowing what they want to learn. And a lot of people come to me saying, I want to learn DevOps. what do you mean by I want to learn DevOps? There are so many DevOps roles out there that it's impossible to say I know DevOps. There is no way somebody will be able to say I know DevOps. So identify the job profiles you want to apply to. So rather than saying I want to learn DevOps, say, okay, this is the job profile I would want to target. This is where I am, and this is the gap. So start doing that. So don't learn without, like, typically, right? Most of the learning, unless learning makes you happy, a lot of people actually learn for learning sake. But most of us learning so that we can be better at a job. So find out what is the gap and how likely you are to use a specific thing at the job, and only then start learning it. It's not useful if you just jump in and try to learn something because it's popular out there. That's not the important thing. The important thing is how likely are you to use it at your job, or how likely is it to make a difference for you in a job you are applying to. So you should know that, and only then focus on learning. So pick up 5 things like that, learn one thing at a time. So that would be my advice. Don't try and learn everything which is out there. Another thing which a lot of people spend a lot of time is trying to choose between AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and jumping into one from the other. Right? Don't do that. If you want to learn cloud, the best way is to learn one cloud very well. Focus on, if you are learning AWS, learn AWS really, really well. Spend a couple of years with it, and then move into other clouds. You will find that learning other clouds become easier. So those would be the 3 things I would want to mention, Balaji. Anything you would want to add?
Yeah, sure, Ranga. So you have mentioned a lot of most valuable points, which probably would be much more useful for many people. And I would say, for an example, if someone become a cloud engineer, and by following all your key takeaways which you have mentioned, the most important thing that one individual must do is they should be ready to learn and unlearn. So that's the most important thing. And also I would say, you should be ready to update yourselves every day, as we have spoken about and one important thing is that every new service is coming up every new day, so you should be able to update every day so that you should be able to cope up with the technology that you are working on. And as Ranga mentioned, learn take one cloud platform, learn it at least to an intermediate level, or spend at least an year or so, so that when you start learning, or probably when you start learning another cloud platform, you can easily learn it by comparing with the service or the cloud platform which you are familiar with. So this is some of the key takeaways that I have from this video, Ranga. So yeah, that's what I have. So
Awesome.
do you have anything
Yeah.
else to add?
I think awesome, Balaji. I think you are stressing on continuous learning. That's very, very important, right? We are in a,
Yes.
we are in a field. We have we have chosen to be in a field where learning is as important as doing the job well, right? And actually, it's a cycle. A lot of people think you like learn to get a job. Actually, if you want to be really, really good at a job, you have to continuously learn. So,
Yeah.
like today, I was talking to Shiva. He said Shiva is one of the people who's part of our programming, the finer aspects stream, and he mentioned this very, very important thing. He says, okay, if I spend 2 hours every day to learn, I see that instead of doing my work in 8 hours, I can do that in 5, 6 hours. So he's actually saving time by learning, right? And
Yeah.
that's what continuous learning enables. So you save
Yeah.
time so that you can keep learning, and you can, like, if you keep learning, you'll get better at your career. So continuous learning is definitely something that everybody should get into a habit of doing. Learning is not something which is one time; it's a continuous thing, right? So if there are any learners out there who are watching this video, uh, what I would recommend you to do is to put your 3 takeaways from this video in as a comment in here. I'll post my 3 takeaways as the comment in the video. Balaji would also post his 3 takeaways from this video as a comment as well. So if you are watching the video, please do post your 3 takeaways from this video. We would love to hear your opinions as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, and other thing is, if you want to get into specific cloud, AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, we have a playlist of videos which we have created, like also to get started on different things related to DevOps, Docker, Kubernetes. So we have a huge playlist of things. We'll also link to it in the description of this video, and we'll also probably put a playlist as the link after this video to watch. So do go ahead and watch those videos and figure out how you would want to learn, which cloud you would want to learn, which DevOps you told you would want to learn. Most important thing, focus on one thing at a time. Thanks a lot, Balaji. Thanks for your time. Thanks for
Thank you.
spending the time and sharing your knowledge, and like helping me organize the knowledge and share my knowledge as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Ranga, for having me today. Thank you.